Hello and welcome. My name is Anyve Arakelijan, and I'm delighted to host the first edition of EFAMA's Expert Insights video series. I'm honored to be joined today by David Atkin, CEO of the UN Principles for Responsible Investment, who kindly joined a roundtable discussion with our members earlier today. We'll be discussing the 2025 landscape for sustainable investment, including regulatory changes and an increased focus on competitiveness. David, many thanks for taking the time to be here with us and for having shared your insights earlier with our members. Let's perhaps try to recap earlier discussions through three different questions. Starting off, last year we saw that the 1.5 degree threshold was crossed, and we know that sustainable transition, the time is really of essence. Now, looking at things rather from a global point of view, we see that there's a lot of ESG pushback, a lot of shifting regulation, but where do you also see the opportunities for PRI to really further strengthen investor confidence?
Thank you for the question, and delighted to be able to join you and to share thoughts. So yes, we are living in a complex world. I think the first point to make is that responsible investment is now a mainstream thematic that investors are now increasingly including in their overall portfolio decision making, and that has come from an idea that was niche to now this point in the global cycle where it's seen as a mainstream idea. It helps by taking the responsible investment approach, enables you as an investor to make better decisions. It helps you identify risk and opportunity in a more concrete way. But yes, we are operating in an environment where we're seeing both from a sort of, greenwashing perspective, making sure that if people are making claims, that they can substantiate it, to also, yes, we're seeing vested interests pushing back, and we're seeing the anti-ESG sort of movement also in place. So the PRI's role in all of that, I think, is to provide a toolkit that enables signatories to remake the case for responsible investment, to have the evidence available that demonstrates academic and professional evidence that demonstrates by applying a responsible investment approach that you are making better informed decisions and that you can go back into your firms and provide that information. We're also creating new ways in which signatories can report their own performance to the PRI. We're reforming the way we do our own reporting and, in fact, going through our own simplification process. So our current reporting requires about 240 indicators, and over the next 12 months we'll be reducing that to less than 40. So significantly reducing the overhead and creating more time for our investors to actually think about investing. Another thing that we're introducing is pathways, customized, digitalized learning in a way that enables you to identify what it is that you're interested in, which peer group is relevant to you, and then being able to identify what's the next step that you can take. So in November of this year, we'll be launching the Pathways program, which will provide customised, digitalised learning to our signatories, but also the ability to say, what's the next thing that I can do? We're also providing more support to our signatories about the ability to come together and work together on common areas of interest, whether it be climate, whether it be nature, whether it be human rights. About a fifth of our signatories, 1,000, are in one of these initiatives, and they're the real leaders of the responsible investment. So there's some of the things that we're doing, in addition to seeking to leverage up the voice of investors when we're talking to policymakers. That if you want institutional capital to play its part in the transition, you need to create the right enabling environment that's stable and that gives confidence to investors to play their part in the transition that we all need to take.
So let's perhaps zoom into Europe as well. We know that competitiveness is really high on the agenda, and with that comes as well the simplification exercise that's ongoing. What would be your main views about the sustainable finance trajectory?
So Europe has been a leader, and that leadership can be backed up when we look at where the AUM is invested. So just reading out some stats here, sustainability-related investments now represent 62% of European AUM, according to estimates from the Sustainable Finance Platform. According to ICMA, Europe accounts for over 84% of the $3 trillion that's in sustainable fund markets, and around 60% of EU-denominated funds are in Article 8 and Article 9. And according to Morgan Stanley, in Europe, 66% of asset owners have a net zero target. So money is already there. Money is looking for a place to invest. But it's also true that because of the role that Europe has played from a leadership point of view, there are lessons to be learnt. And so I think the omnibus simplification process is timely because there are some things that you now in hindsight we would understand we would do differently. So the PRI and its feedback from our signatories is that they're all on board. However, it's important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and that we make sure that the policymakers understand that the data demand is still there. So it's important to have the thresholds in the right place. It's important that we're having enough of the data that enables investors to make informed decisions about where they allocate capital. So if things go too far, the demand will still be there. It'll just be more expensive and less, frankly, standardised and less confidence that you could have in it. So our argument very much is get the balance right. Make sure that the needs of the investors are being understood when the Parliament finally makes its determination about where it lands on the simplification process.
It's indeed an important balancing act. Last but not least, looking ahead, we have COP30. Any final words on how UNPRI can really further ensure that European investor perspectives are reflected into the global climate agenda?
So look, this year's COP30 is really important, being held in Belém in Brazil. It's when the nationally determined contributions are being revised and resubmitted by governments. Governments are meant to be ratcheting up their NDCs at this COP. And for us, we're wanting to be able to tell the story in a more concrete and action-orientated way where, sustainable capital is looking for a place to invest. Developed market investors in Europe are looking to invest, but they need the right enabling environment that can only be settled by policymakers. We really want to tell the story of the connection between nature, climate, the need for capital to be mobilised in emerging markets, because we don't solve these sustainability issues unless we also have emerging markets being able to make the transition, and using Brazil as the case study. The Brazilian investors are very excited about the opportunity to tell their story of opportunities to invest in their market. But we also want to make sure that governments and policymakers more generally understand that if you are looking for private capital to play its part, you need to create whole of government solutions. You need to create visibility of what the project pipeline would be at a level of granularity that's around sector specific. And this is where we hope the NDCs are playing their part. But for us, this COP is an opportunity for us to really amplify the voice of investors and their needs, and hopefully governments will be able to take that and be able to build that into the final outcomes of this COP30 process.
Many thanks, David, for taking the time to be here with us, and also for all the work that you do, you and your colleagues. I think it was a really interesting discussion earlier, but also now with a lot of thought-provoking ideas. So many thanks for that.
My pleasure.